Welcome to Pitch Your Firm. I'm your host, Marc Howard. Today we have a special guest, John Sanchez, CPA. John, welcome to the show. And why don't you just give us a kind of like your 30-second intro of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me on. Our firm, John Sanchez and Company, is located in Auburn Hills, Michigan. Started my practice in 2010. Didn't really take off till about 2017. And it what launched it is I purchased another firm, a larger firm. And since then, from day one, it was a constant re-engineering of what we're doing, how we're doing it, who we're serving. It was a very compliance focused practice, basically a tax prep firm. Yeah, they did
Sure.
accounting, the bookkeeping, but probably 80% of their revenue was tax returns. So
Sure.
it's been a long, I would say at times arduous task, definitely in the beginning, changing who we're serving, how we're doing the work, upgrading all our technology. But now we are at 20, we just closed 2024. I would say our revenue is probably 80% over what it used to be, serving a third of the client base. And that has been, it's a constant effort building up the client base, serving specifically who we know we can serve well, and building more an advisory practice rather than a compliance only practice. We've fixed a lot, but there's still a lot to be done. But it's really been rewarding to see how things have grown.
That was great. You said a lot there. We're going to unpack as much as possible in this short little session here. And I like a few of the things you said, and you mentioned a couple of your numbers. Let's actually start with that a little bit, and then we're going to dive into what you're doing there to enhance your firm. Now, a little earlier, we talked about your numbers a little bit. You're doing about 1.25 mil in revenue. About 12 months ago, you were doing about 1.15 million, and you're working with about seven FTEs, almost 75% recurring revenue with about 240 clients, EBITDA at about 180,000, owner dependency about 30%, and revenue from your top three clients at about 10%. Fascinating numbers. We're going to go back and forth with those a little bit, but I guess what I really want to start with, the first thing I want to unpack is you mentioned you're looking to go from that compliance path to advisory, as that's all the rage these days. What are you doing different to go to advisory, and what does that actually mean for your practice and transitioning from compliance work?
Yeah. So when we look at, like I mentioned before, we're looking at our numbers. One of the one of the things we've been part of a couple of different coaching programs over the years, and that's really helped. But towards the end of last year, I did a little exercise. I looked at, okay, what were we revenue wise in 2017, and how many clients were we serving, and then what was our average revenue per client? And I did that over the years through the end of 2024 that we just closed out. So when you look at these numbers, Mark, you can believe we had over 700 clients. Our average revenue was just under $1,000 per client. Now
Wow.
we look at where we ended 2024 at, just under average client revenue is just under 5,000, serving a third of that client base. And that was really a product. COVID helped in a lot of ways in that we were working with Zoom and distributed clients and staff before COVID. And then when COVID happened, it's like the world became more open to working with an accountant that wasn't in their same city. So that I think that helped us a lot because a lot of our marketing is online and we're marketing and targeting business clients all over the country. So for when we talk about advisory work, that can be so many different things that fit in that bucket. But for us, that's primarily tax advisory and CFO advisory. And those are the advisory areas that we've focused on growing.
Got it. Now, at seven FTEs, it looks like you are trying to grow a little more. Let me ask you this, John. If why would I want to work at your firm? I have so many choices. As we know, the industry is in this talent shortage today. Maybe I can go work for the Big Four. Maybe I'm a freshly minted CPA, or maybe I'm a bookkeeper looking just to join a really growth-minded firm. Why would I want to come to your firm? What is it about your particular firm?
There's interesting. So we we work with a team mindset. And while that can probably be said for most firms, I think, Mark, I can go through a list of the whys to answer your question, but I'll just say this one thing, and I think it'll resonate with a lot of people. When we look back to 2017, my numbers, 700 something clients, average revenue of just under 1,000. I'm thinking back to what tax season looked like in 2017. It wasn't uncommon for me to get a phone call from my wife at 10 o'clock at night. Are you coming home? When are you coming
Hmm.
home? I don't know. Maybe in another hour. That was 2017. Fast forward to 2022, 2023, or 2024 tax season. We maybe worked 50 hours a week, and that didn't start till mid to late February. And for half of tax season, we weren't working overtime, taking weekends off. It's a different world. It's a different world. Tax season for us very closely resembles normal life the rest of the year, unlike what it used to be in 2017. And that's really a function of not so much compliance only work, right? You can have all these clients, you got to get work out the door, but we've shrunk that client base, delivering more high value service. And the tax season is, we're managing it a lot simpler through the February through April 15th, but also getting not just ourselves comfortable, but our clients comfortable with the reality of extension season, right? We're not going to compress. Tax season used to be 12 weeks, not anymore. I would say it's more like 8 weeks now because of all the changes and the late documents getting out from the brokerage houses, the clients, and the clients getting around to get their data to us. It's really forced us to rethink what tax season should look like. So if I had to answer that from one perspective, is what does tax season look like for us? And it's pretty darn normal.
John, that is one metric that I think I need to add to my spreadsheet here. How many calls after 10 p.m. by the wife? And I think if that number can be decreased each tax season, you're definitely doing something right. I love that. Now, let me ask you, we're talking about like clients a little bit. Let's talk about client acquisition. You mentioned that was in our pre-call, that's one of your goals, obviously, besides bringing on talent as far as your team. But tell me about your client acquisition. What are you doing? Are you doing referrals, working with particular marketing agencies? What's like your client acquisition process?
Yeah. We've been working with a marketing company. We've done so many different things. We haven't figured it out. We've
Sure.
got some things that seem to be working okay for us right now, and we're learning as we go. One thing we started doing in the last year, say 18 months, I had to get comfortable with. It just felt uncomfortable doing, but it was more like Facebook advertising, social media
Sure.
advertising. Because in my
Sure.
mind, I'm thinking, who's looking on Facebook? I'm thinking more of the traditional mindset. And yeah, we have referrals. We have that organic. People just find us on Google. It's the old salesperson's joke is you go door to door sales, and the person that shows up at the door has got their phone in their hand. Right? This is where they
Sure.
live. That's the reality.
Sure.
We think of that in terms of our kids, the younger generation, but that is the case. That's true for even business owners. So we've been trying to target more specifically dentists and veterinarians. And so right now we're focused in those niches and on the marketing side, and
Yep.
we've been focused on Facebook ads and booking those appointments and bringing on those clients. On the step in the door is tax advisory because nobody likes paying taxes, right?
Sure.
I don't, you don't. So if we can find ways to save you 10, 20, 50,000 a year, that's the focus of our tax advisory services. And it's not a one and done. It's something that's continually evolving as your business is evolving. So that's what we focus on. And we're getting some results there. And we're pretty happy with it. And we'll hope it continues.
Now, you mentioned some niches, and we're going to talk about that next. But before we do, I want to talk about, let's hop back to the client base. You mentioned there's about, actually, let's talk about your employees. So you mentioned there's about 7 FTEs there, and your owner dependency is about 30%. So you are involved, and obviously, you're not a major firm. You obviously have some owner involvement there. What's your thoughts in terms of delegating work? How do you delegate work? And are you trying to get that owner dependency percentage down? Maybe one day you may be looking at getting acquired or something else, or obviously trying to increase your enterprise value. How are you getting that, and how are you actually getting that delegation done, and what are you using for that?
Yeah, so I look at our firm kind of in three departments. We have the accounting department, then we have the tax department, then we have the advisory. So we have at the very basic level for the clients that need us, we want you to do our accounting, right? So we have an accounting team, a team of four there, and they're focused on that. Lauren, who's our accounting manager, does a great job. And then we have a team of three accountants in the Philippines. That team is working together and they handle the client's accounting. They are the primary contact there. I'm really not involved in that at all unless they need me to. On the tax side, Mike's our tax manager. He handles and manages that team. We have a seasonal staff that kind of helps supplement our tax prep for tax season. About three people we work with. And then the advisory side, that's primarily me. So a lot of the advisory work I'm doing. Uh,
Got it.
team. I enjoy doing it, but if we're going to grow the way I'm hoping we're going to grow into 2025, I'm at the point where I know I'm going to have to bring somebody else on because I'm going to be tapped out pretty soon.
Got it. Let's talk a little bit about before we actually get into the niche, I do want to bring up your tech stack. A lot of accountants think that firms are made and broken by tech stacks. I'm actually not a believer of that. I think it's more about the people. I think it's more about the talent. You can train great people even on mediocre software, but the best software that isn't in the world isn't going to fix a firm that has bad staff. Um, with that said, what is your tech stack like? Are you using a practice management system? Are there any sort of what are your sort of go-to software that you're using for your firm right now?
Yeah, on the tech side, we're on UltraTax, Thomson Reuters. We were very deep into the TR ecosystem, and we've
Hmm.
slowly let go of certain parts of it. So we moved away from their document manager. Now we're on Smart Vault. That seems to work very well. Our management workflow software we use is Financial Sense. And that
Yep.
was somewhat of a game changer for us. And since then, there's a few more that have come out. But for us, why it works so well is all of our accounting work, all of our tax work, that's all scheduled out. There's a process for everything we do. And then when it comes to, as Mark, in our business, the big pain points is getting information from clients and chasing it down. So with Financial Sense, we don't so much have to chase it down. We can set up reminders for the client to upload XYZ, right? And tell it, remind the client every 2 or 3 days, whatever it is, until they finish it. So that's really put the burden off of our team's shoulders to lean into the tech to help get that data in. Tax return delivery, we've been using SafeSend for 3 years now. That's worked fantastic. Same thing there. It's getting the organizers and getting their data uploaded and reminding them continually until they get it completed, leading into that. For some clients, it's annoying. We tell them, sorry, we don't want to be a nag, but we want to make sure we're keeping the needle moving forward. But those are probably our primary. And then tax advisory, we worked on a couple different programs. I've used CoreV. That worked out well. That kind of really got us started. I switched over to Tax Plan IQ. That seems to be much easier to roll out and use. But so much of what we're doing, tax advisory, those are nice tools. But the tax advisory, that's all in the person, right? And I know what we can do. I know what strategies work, and being able to communicate that to the clients and putting that into a program for implementation and continual meetings to make sure everything's on track. That's really part of the internal process.
Yeah, and obviously as there's big shakeups in the industry, you probably heard that SafeSend was recently acquired by
Yeah,
Thomson Reuters,
yeah.
$600
A
million
couple of days
deal,
ago.
I believe it
Right.
was, in cash, which
Yeah.
was pretty phenomenal. So I think we're going to see a lot more consolidation. Now let's actually dive into the niches and industries you serve. There's actually several on your site. I believe you said you're focusing more on the dental and the health part of it. Tell me a little bit about like your core niches and what made you choose those particular niches.
Yeah. So several, I would say about 4 or 5 years ago, we had a few dentists in our practice and we worked really well. When we would switch over to advisory, we started finding some good strategies, core strategies that work well with dentists. And we thought these dentists, they're great to work with. They're profitable and we can do a lot for them. So we thought, let's try getting more dentists into our practice. So that's what we started down the road. Right around that same time, we had a veterinarian come into our practice by referral. And as we started working with the veterinarian and trying to work with them on not just the accounting, tax, but the advisory side, we started finding strategies to work with them to help them save money. And we learned something. It's like a light bulb went off. It's like, oh, these veterinarians are pretty profitable. And the strategies work the same with both of these. So let's try this. We're starting to reach out to the dentists. Let's work on reaching out to veterinarians. And as we started down that road, what we found was we were getting some results from the dental outreach, but we were getting more results from the veterinarian outreach for some reason. And the only thing I can think of, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. The only thing I think of is I think the dentists, I think every CPA out there is looking for dentists, right? Because they know they're profitable. They make good money. And that's important because in my mind, for dentists, they're profitable. We can help them save a lot of money. And they're in somewhat a recession resistant business, not recession proof, but recession resistant. And in a lot of ways, COVID proved that gut check, because while the dentists were affected for a short time there during COVID, after COVID, they just came back stronger than ever. So we figured out we can help them both, but we got more response from the veterinarians. And here's the reason why I think that's the case. I don't think the vet community is getting as much love from the CPA community as much as the dental community is. So it was resonating more, and then we started getting more of those veterinarians. And so those are two niches that we serve. We can do a lot for them, and we like working with them.
If the dental and particularly the vet niche continues to serve you well, continues to have the higher profit margin, could you see a firm actually just doubling down on that? Maybe not so much the other niches that you currently serve?
Yeah, that's been something we've continually bounced around for a couple of years, to the point where we think at some point, do we rebrand once we get to a critical mass? Maybe
Yeah.
that's not outside the realm of possibility. Um, I'm not in love with my name. My name doesn't have to be the name of the entity of the company, but whatever makes sense to better serve the clients we're looking to serve. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's something we've thought about.
Yeah, and we'll have other guests on with other niches. One thing is the dental niche is very competitive right now, but I'm not hearing as much on the veterinarian niche. So that's very interesting. If that's something that you can actually find a way to corner. I know with dental practices, there's a lot of bespoke services that an accounting firm can offer. I'm not super familiar with the veterinarian side, so do you imagine, and you don't have to answer this now if you don't know, but is there any particular bespoke service that you can see yourself offering, like a veterinarian or any kind of like productized service? What I'm really getting at, John, is how are you going to continue to differentiate yourself when the veterinarian market gets a little crowded too with other accounting firms?
Yeah, at the end of the day, a lot of that is the veterinarians are no different from the dentists and no different from you and I. We don't like to pay taxes, right? We're being successful, we're making money, and we're finding Uncle Sam's getting a bigger chunk of that as we're growing. So our goal is, okay, how do we make that chunk smaller so that you can amp up your lifestyle or reinvest into your practice to continue to grow, to continue to invest, bringing in the talent that you need, because the talent market is just as competitive and tight for the veterinarians as it is for the dentists.
Sure.
So it's really helping them grow and keeping more of their money so they can reinvest and or amp up their lifestyle. And that's where we're a lot of what's resonating with those clients on the CFO advisors, just helping them understand their numbers and not just looking at history, but looking ahead and do we hire another veterinarian? Do we have enough? Okay, let's talk about that. Let's do a what if scenario. What's that cost? What's that going to add to the top line? And what's cash flow look like 12 months down the road? Right? Are those conversations those people are having their CPA once a year? Heck no, they're not. But with the CFO advisor, those are the kinds of conversations we're having and looking at numbers and dashboards. And I'm just looking at a P&L. We're putting kind of some graphical interpretations of their numbers. And I think that helps them see it a little better.
And speaking of down the road, as we come to a close here, where do you see yourself? Where do you see a firm in 3 years' time in terms of revenue, in terms of what's going to be the John Sanchez CPA 2.0 in 3 years now?
I get that question a lot, Mark, and this is the best way I know to answer it. I couldn't tell you what that looks like. This is how I've always approached my firm. I'm only just looking to the next mountaintop because that's all I can get to, right? And once I get there, then maybe I'll see another mountaintop. And then I'll make that decision at that point. So right now, my goal is that next mountaintop is 25% revenue growth. If I can get there, I think I can get there without adding any additional staff. And if I can get there without increasing my costs, then I can think about, okay, what is the reinvestment that I need to make into the practice to get to that next mountaintop? Because in my mind, I'm thinking I may get to a mountaintop where I'm feeling, you know what, I may not want to go to that next mountaintop. I may be just fine where I'm at and continuing focus on my team and making sure that we're continually serving our clients well. And at that point, we can decide whether do I want to retire early? I don't know. I'm 53 years old. I don't know that I'm ever going to retire. I don't the life of retiring sitting on the beach all the time is I don't know, that's a boring thought to me.
It's
Uh,
definitely overrated.
yeah, exactly. I'm a firm believer in the saying you retire to something, not from something. I don't see myself doing nothing in retirement. It'll be something, whether that something is continually serving clients or doing something else that feeds more into my life values. Who knows? I don't know the answer to that, but I take the one day at a time, as Jesus said in the Bible. Just take it one day at a time.
Well, John, just to end here, now that you've basically cracked the $1 million revenue mark, any parting advice for other firm leaders that are maybe near or at that $1 million mark that are trying to get above that? Any kind of advice for other firm leaders that you can offer to help them out in that particular area?
Yeah, I guess from a very elementary, basic, impactful, it's something I shared with my team years ago when we started down this path. Because when we start doing things differently, you start thinking about your practice differently, you got to force yourself out of a comfort zone. And I tell my team all the time, so listen, as accountants, we are by nature hardwired to get into a rut of comfort. Because if this is working, everything let's just stay here. And that's a dangerous place to be because we're living in a very changing scenario with our practice, our business. In the accounting, tax, professional services world, it is changing fast. And if we're going to move out of our comfort zone, that means we're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be doing things that are uncomfortable. So I tell my team, be comfortable feeling uncomfortable because that's where the growth happens. If we want to stay comfortable, we stop growing and we start dying. So I've had to change our mindset that way. And even now, with all the change that we've implemented and we're doing, it's an evolving thing. I find myself pushing myself outside of some level of comfort to continually feeling uncomfortable because I know I've got to continue to grow. I can't stop growing. I have to continually learn new things. How can I better serve clients? What new tools are out there that might make sense for us to implement? But wait, we just implemented XYZ 2 years ago. You know what? So what? That we can't get stuck in a rut. So it's be comfortable feeling uncomfortable because that is the only place where growth happens.
I love that quote, and I might just make that the title of the show for this particular episode, being comfortable, be comfortable being uncomfortable over $1 million. I love that. John, thank you so much. It's been great having you, and wish you the best of luck growing your firm.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate being on the show.
Bye now.